And it is my distinct pleasure to introduce our speaker, Peter Nieves-Sosa. Peter Nieves-Sosa has been a crane operator since 1999. He started the Crane Man Inc. in 2008. Peter has 20 years of crane experience and specializes in large and hazardous tree removal. He's a member of the ISA and TCIA. He is NCCCO Certified crane operator. He's the founder of the Crane Safety Climber School, which is now in its 10th year. And gratefully, he's also an occasional contributor to TCI Magazine. Please help me welcome Peter Nieves-Sosa.
Thank you, Don. That's an honor to be introduced by a legend himself. Thank you. Just to start things off, Don already mentioned that we are at the end of the conference. I've been here since Tuesday for the beginning of the conference. We kind of somehow got roped into opening and closing the event, it looks like. Thank you all for coming and spending the time here in Pittsburgh with us. It's been a great event, great weather, except for the rain, the cold air, and all that stuff. So, to get things started, again, thanking the TCIA for allowing me the opportunity to be here to speak in front of all of you. I'd like to start things off with, we're kind of together here for the next hour. I'd like to say this isn't necessarily going to be the conventional crane talks that I've done before, where the start to finish of this is how things go from start to finish of a crane removal or otherwise. We've done cleaning with cranes. Getting into those hard to reach spots, but this is going to be more of the key points that you people need to look for, like self-checks, little things that happen throughout every day to, keep yourself in a safety-conscious environment. Things that happen constantly. There's all these processes that you mentally do without even thinking about it. I mean, if I was to just walk up to Keith right now to shake his hand, I don't actually think about putting my hand out to shake his hand. It just happens. There's subconscious things that go into performing all the tasks that we do in a day. I pace back and forth in front of a large group of people because I get uncomfortable talking in front of a large group of people. So this is where we're at. Basically, I'd like to start out with, this mentality to grow this safety culture was part of what put me on the path 12 years ago. Before I was the crane man, I worked for a local crane company. We did trusses, we did air conditioners, we did tree work. I kind of became the guy that did the tree work. I was passionate about it. I enjoyed the challenge. But I wasn't the only one doing it. We were a good company. We had monthly safety meetings, but we lacked like the legitimate training, the getting together in a room like this, talking about it, or even especially the hands-on part. So I wasn't the only one doing tree work. And one day, multiple crane operators were out doing jobs. Just happened to be out for guy that I was with all the time, and we knocked our job out in a hurry. This was back in the Nextel. Everybody remembers the Nextel with beep beep? Interrupt that, no matter where you were. I got that beep beep. Hey, one of the cranes just went over. It's like, Then the next, who was it? All comes through. Just happened to be the guy that I was working with. Another crane was out with his brother. Same company, his brother was on another crew, and so obviously now there's two of us there with a vested interest in what just happened over there. We wrap up, we head over there, and honest to God, that was one of the worst moments in the career. When you walk up to a site, knowing that the boom is supposed to be up in the air. A lot of guys know me, make fun of me for this is how I do the boom. When the boom is now down on the ground, contoured to the earth, bent the way it booms. It's not an up boom, this is a stick crane. It's supposed to be straight, not all like that. So it's rolling in the golf course over the hills, the tires of the crane, 40 feet up in the air. Who likes to see the underside of their truck? And only when you're doing oil changes, right? So that thing's standing up, and it's like you get that sinking feeling in your stomach. This is just not the way it's supposed to be. But being professionals, you instantly go into recovery mode. I was actually the first other person from our company on site. The boss was there within minutes. We had to call in a second crane. That's usually what happens when a crane accident happens. More cranes show up. Like flies, But one crane going over usually takes 2 cranes to stand that back up. So think about that. Keep that in the back of your mind every time you're jamming me all the way down into the backyard of the property where there's basically just enough room for me. We never like to think about when it goes wrong or if it happens, but we need to plan as professionals, right? Everything has to be there, ready to go if need be. So we get the crane, stood back up. We actually had to take the torch and cut the head of the boom off, because like I said, once it contoured to the earth, it doesn't retract very well anymore. So that crane's gone. Did get fixed, but it was gone for them. The hardest part about that incident was the fact that the thing just kept resonating with me for days and days afterwards, even today. Everybody that was involved with that accident said, I knew it wasn't going to go right. It didn't look right. To the point that, the climber, after he made the cut, the crane was rigged to the piece, he came out of the tree. Why would he come out of the tree? Because he knew he did something wrong already, and he was, removing himself from harm's way, for one, but the fact that he didn't do it right. He didn't take the time to rig the piece right, to go through all the steps to keep a safe, work environment for everybody. The crane operator said, I knew it was wrong, but I was just, I didn't, in his defense, he didn't think it was going to go that bad. He knew it was going to flip the piece, not the whole crane. So the only bad part was, it was choked too low. It was a big log. It was within the chart, but it was choked on like the cranes, towards the crane side. So when it picked up, it tipped away. As soon as it tipped away, well, now it's 5 or 10 feet further away, and once that momentum starts, it doesn't stop. Gravity is on 24/7, 365. Gravity wins all the time. So that whole thing, that the reasons why it went bad, the part that bothered me was everybody on the site said they had a feeling. They thought it was going to go bad, but nobody said anything. Why wouldn't you stop and just say something? I don't care if it's the ground guy, broken English, whatever, communication. Somebody needs to be said, time out, that doesn't look right. Even if he's not the one doing it, any one of us on any job site are safety officers, right? Does anybody in the room feel like they can't stop a job at any moment because something doesn't look right? You should. Everybody should be able to just say, time out, let's discuss this. Maybe I'm not on the same page as you. Explain to me what you're doing there again. But most of our incidences are preventable. And all you have to do is stop, take a minute, say something about it, then either move on or correct. That's going to be the thing. Start the discussion, be ready to correct. Something that was, not looking good. To move on from there, we're gonna keep developing that idea of a safety culture. So, right from the get-go, first impression. You never get a second chance to make a first impression. Who loves it when, a rag-bag team of gypsies shows up to a job and men just start scattering out of trucks, running all over the place, Seems like slightly controlled chaos, maybe more chaos than control. what if I show up in tow mater, ready to just pick your tree apart today, It's first impressions. First impressions are sometimes the start to that safe mentality, to the way things go. If I show up in my nice clean NVT 55 crane with my polished rims and everything else, you get the impression of me that I care about what I'm doing. I care that my equipment looks good. I care that, I'm keeping it all together, because it's clean, it's operable. You get the impression that I'm running something that actually functions, for one, does what it's supposed to do, for two. If you show up, equipment gets old. I'm not saying that, but equipment gets dense in it. Somebody has a crane at home right now that has a big old dent in the roof because of a little piece of dead ash tree that fell off a pit. But it happens. But keeping that outward appearance is actually part of showing a good culture of safety. It shows right from the get-go. So, to move on, to get any job started, what has to happen? You have to sell the job. You gotta get all the appropriate equipment to the site. But when everybody gets to the site, you've obviously sold the job. You have a plan. You have some idea of how it's going to go down. Whether if you're renting a crane like me and I show up, I don't know what your plan is. You need to convey that plan to me. You need to, share everything. I may change your plan as a crane and keep that in mind as tree companies renting cranes. The crane does have kind of the ultimate, decision of where or how he's going to set it up. But hopefully, with that first impression, he's a nice guy, clean cut, ready to work with you. You're going to work through those details. You're going to take the time, and again, back to the beginning, all you need to do is take the time for safety. I get it. I'm expensive. I'm not a cheap date. You call me up. I'm charging you from the time I left the shop to the time I get back to the shop, but therefore you kind of want to get me moving as quick as you can. But slow it down a little bit. Don't worry about the money so much as worry about keeping that safety culture in place. Let everybody know. When you have a job site briefing, who should be at the job site briefing? Everyone. That means the ground guys, the climber. The salesman's usually the guy that, open things up. You want to identify all the potential hazards, safety issues. Part of the salesman's job is obviously to identify the work to be done. That's usually pretty obvious. We get this tree down, decide this tree has to go through that chipper. How complicated is that really? It's not. But there's a whole series of subconscious processes that have to happen to take that tree, put it on the ground in the horizontal position, move it through that chipper. So, I can't emphasize enough. Even in my own training sessions at the Crane Safety Climber School, everybody wants to get to the work, right? Everybody wants to show up, get going as fast as you can, get saws running, chippers chipping, crane in the air, but don't get ahead of yourself. Back it down a notch for safety's sake. Fill out the JSA. Did it happen if it's not written down? No, it did not. I'm guilty of it as much as anybody else. The reason I'm not standing on that podium is just, I'm just one of you guys. This is not, I don't have all the answers. Just been doing it for a while and been pretty successful in it. And for some reason, people like hearing me talk. My wife says I just like hearing myself talk, but not sure. So, first step when everybody shows up, write it down. Document what you're doing. Fill out the JSA. Identify all the hazards. Make your plan. You've identified the work to be done. That's the first step to a safe, productive day, crane removal or otherwise. This isn't one of those actual crane-specific things. You guys should probably be doing this on all your jobs, right? It's not just crane removals get a higher focus from everybody, obviously, because it's the big show, right? You've got literally probably $1 million worth of iron in somebody's driveway right now that you're getting, what, $2,500 to take down their stupid little dead ash tree. That my life doesn't change if that ash tree stays or goes. Yeah. So think about what's happening. Think about what would happen if, back at the beginning, that incident occurs. If you don't have that documentation to back up your decision-making process that put you to the point that something happens, we're all going to end up in court together, but whoever's better documented might stand the chance of leaving with the most still in their wallet, That's just a step-by-step process. So, moving on from that, the next thing that has to happen is you have to set the crane up. You've decided how, what's going on, everything else. Just like building a house, it starts from the foundation up. So, a good foundation like the pyramids, I'm not really a good historian, but how long have the pyramids been here? A little while. They got a pretty good foundation, right? They built that thing wide at the bottom, all the way up, looks good. A little weather deterioration on the nose of the one guy, but it's all good. So, like I said earlier, we're looking for those pinpoint items to indicate an unsafe act is starting to happen, which is going to snowball and progress into an incident eventually. Learn to pick out those things. If your crane operator shows up and is willing to, we're just going to assume that's like South America or somewhere. We don't believe that stuff happens in the United States, right? The stuff on the right, But if you have that guy that seems like he's willing to let's get going here, let's get it done, whatever has to happen. Time out. I know I'm paying you, but could we please do this properly? This is actually on my dime now. I want to get paid at the end of this job, so we have to get to the end of this job. Taking shortcuts and cutting corners at the beginning isn't necessarily going to get you to the end faster. It may get you to the end faster, but it may not be the end that you were looking to get to. So, proper cribbing, standards. I'm not going to get too much into standards of proper installation. I'm just trying to point out key things for you guys to look for throughout your day working with a crane. So, proper, or I guess the way the standards might actually say, sufficient cribbing to support the crane and its load. So, used to say 3 times the square foot of the outrigger pad. They're different on all cranes. Some are bigger, some are smaller, so that's going to determine the size. But ground, bearing pressures and whatnot, setting up in a swamp as opposed to setting up in the Mojave Desert is going to make things different too for how much cribbing you put down. Generally, I liked the 3 times rule just because it gave you I can see 2 square feet. It's easy to picture 6 square feet, right? 3 times. So, but sufficient to support the crane and its load. That's something you have to think about. We're building something from the ground up here that starts here. Once we get the crane set up, level, outriggers out, booms up, once that boom starts moving, that load is going to shift. It's going to go from, there's going to be more pressure over this outrigger when I'm facing this way, but then when I rotate here, this guy doesn't feel so much, this guy does. So every outrigger has to get the same, appropriate, surface to support the crane and its load. Because at some point, it's not just the crane. What do we do? Set up here to take a tree down. Now you've got the weight of the crane. Now you've picked a piece of the tree. It's like me holding you. On the scale, it's just me by myself. As soon as I pick you up, on the scale, it's both of us now. So keep that in mind. It's at some point, that foundation that you've created is supporting the weight of the crane. My one truck's 77,000 pounds, the other one's 55,000 pounds, and you start picking 10,000 pound pieces, you know, it's all got to be there. So, little key points, keep them in mind. In order to get set up, you got to know where you can set up. You got to know your area of operation takes X amount of feet to do something. Like I said before, if the crane doesn't get set up, you're not even going to start working for the day. So you need to know where, when, how, what you need to do to get the crane in position. This is just kind of one of those funny ones to put in there just because it's, you know, that guy had to go to his appointment. As soon as that crane was set up, you know that, right? So, either way, if you can't get the crane set up, nothing's happening. So we've gone through our JSA, we figured out all the hazards and the obstacles and the plan of the day. Now we've got, we know we got to get proper cribbing. We know what amount of room it takes to set our equipment up in, not just the crane, but the landing zone, where the chip truck's going to be. If a bucket truck's going to be implemented, can it even fit into the mix? Maybe, maybe not. I don't care. That's not for me. It's for you. So you want to use a bucket truck? Come have at it. You want to climb a tree? Climb a tree. So big things are just point things out. If it doesn't look right, say something. I'm going to keep kind of jumping back to these points of when you're going through your whole processes, at any given point of the day, if your climber is so uncomfortable that he needs his buddy to go up with and hug him and give him support the whole day, he's out of his element, man. Don't force him. Give him a hug and send him on his way. You know, you gotta get the job done, but everybody needs to be comfortable with everything that's going on. And when something doesn't look right, I'm going to keep emphasizing, time out, stop, just explain to me what we're doing here again. Taking the tree down, right? What do we got to do that? We got to get the climber into the tree. So another key point to look at is how do you get the climber into the tree? If you called a crane, chances are he wants to take the elevator, not the stairs. So one of the first key points that we always want to discuss, it's in the regulations, we don't ride the hook anymore. That's cowboy stuff from days of old, right? We have to tie into a positive locking device secured to the load line above the ball or to the tip of the boom of the crane. The ANSI standards are great. They lay it all out there for you. But again, if you guys are doing a job, a key point to look for is how are we entering the tree? How are we getting our climber onto the crane to get him into the tree? That's a first, something doesn't look right here moment, right? If he's just throwing his line into the hook, you know, throwing all his rigging onto the hook too, right? So do you guys normally put your rigging in the same spot that your climbing line's in? Thank you. Every now and then I might actually say a question and I like, just make sure your waves, yeah, somebody say something, please. So, yeah, there's a bunch of them on the market. The center picture there, I believe, is actually what Westburg sells. It, oddly enough, mimics the one that's on my crane every day. There's other, Cambium, Saber type deals. If you have your own crane, obviously you're going to have your own setup. If you work with rental cranes all the time, chances are you call in Joe's Big Iron from your pip. He might not have done tree work before. He might never do tree work again after he works with you. I don't know. Depends how the day goes, right? You leave a bad taste, it's not that first impression thing. You may be, talking Joe out of ever doing tree work again. Just, good job. That was horrible. So, if you have your own, if you guys are doing repetitive tree, crane removals, I can't strongly enough recommend have your own setup. A couple bucks investment, it's another tool in the toolbox, but it's going to keep you safe, keep you able to work with any crane that shows up. You know, you have to be ready. I know the knuckle booms out there, they're going to have some different stuff to work with, but the main point is don't be tied into the same spot that you're going to actually be rigging from. It's kind of the same concept, right? That, you know, like I said, there's these repetitive concepts that just develop that it's the same safety reasons that were, you know, guys used to say that, well, that crane does all kinds of iron work and whatnot. His hook's probably all chipped up and burred up. I don't want to run my river. Honestly, I've never seen a crane that had a burred up and chipped up hook, unless somebody was running the welder on it, maybe. I don't know why you would be running the welder on your hook. So it's more of a, you don't tie into where you're rigging from thing, and in my mind. I might be wrong, but that's my opinion on that one. So either way, pick a system, small investment, have it in the truck that's going to be going out. The guys that are doing your crane removals, chances are it's the same crew over and over again, or at least if you don't do that many, at least you'll have it on the shelf. When you do the job, when you've planned it out, you've got everybody headed out to the job with all their appropriate tools and saws. I mean, who shows, you know, you plan these things ahead, right? If you're going down to take a 60-inch oak down, do you just show up with your 200T? No. Plan ahead, know what tools you're going to need to complete the tasks of the day. So this is just one of those things. Another key point that I can't emphasize enough, it comes up a lot across the industry, just climber tie-in point. And it's a simple solution. Have something available for your guys to tie into, you know, if it's your crane. So we're putting these tools into place. You have to use the right tool for the job. A crane is just a tool. It is a giant, expensive, glorious, wonderful, exotic tool. But that's all it is. It's a tool. We all have to use our tools properly. Obviously, the slides here just for some shock and all, but man, when I scrolled through whatever social media platform that day was and saw that, it was kind of like, ooh, my goodness. Obviously couldn't afford the crane, but you could afford a bucket truck. Same difference. So using your tools properly, and using your tools properly means using them what they're designed to do. A crane was designed by really smart people that did a lot of math and calculated what it would actually be able to do. You use it, they give you a book with it when you purchase it. It has a list in there, a chart, a load chart that says exactly what it can do, where it can do it, how, and you know, then it read further in the manual. The manual tells you how you make the crane do what it needs to do. How do you use this crane properly? Levers. I could throw a monkey into the cab of my crane right now, and I guarantee you he's going to make it move. That's not the hard part. Making it move is literally just pulling levers. You grapple guys, they're just little toggle switches. Anybody can do that. Not to you know, downgrade the actual, you know, what I do, you know, crane operator. I pull levers, you know. It's 4 levers. It's no big deal, guys. We all have, well, most of us have all the fingers and stuff. So, pulling those levers, that makes it move, but doing it the way the manufacturer designed it to be used is a key point. And that's a safety thing. You're not supposed to run, I don't know, probably not supposed to run anything. I bet you when you take your chainsaw out of the box, it probably says do not use until you read the owner's manual, right? Seems simple. I mean, you guys use chainsaws every day. They're all the same. I don't care what color they are. They're just another chainsaw, right? Cranes are the same thing, right? Just jump in them and go. Pull those 4 levers, make them go around. I don't know, how many toggle switches do those knuckle booms have? 28, 42? A whole bunch. A little more complicated, but yeah, it's still just, you're just mechanically hitting a button, making the thing move. But if you're not doing it right, you're not doing it right. And hopefully, running back, if you're not doing it right, hopefully somebody on the team says, time out, time out. That doesn't look right, boss. I read the manual last night, I don't know if you did, but it says we shouldn't do it that way. Don't just keep pulling if the piece didn't move, crank it up to, this thing's it's a 55-ton crane, right? Just keep pulling. That's not the way to do it. You got to know how it's supposed to be used, and use your tools the way they were designed to be used. It's just a simple concept. That's not, like you said, it's not actually a crane-specific concept, right? It is just to use your tools the way they were designed to be used. They're all just tools. They're gonna accomplish, again, at the end of the day, all we're doing is putting trees from vertical to horizontal. It's no big deal. Make it happen, use your tools properly. The biggest thing is, a crane is a glorious, fabulous, wonderful tool. It's a machine. It doesn't get tired. How many of you can go for 16 hours, non-stop, one after the other? I don't care if it's 1,000 pounds at a time or 7,000 pounds at a time, over and over and over again, all day long. How many climbers? John, 10? Good man. But it's a machine. It doesn't care how many hours a day it does, as long as you put fuel back in the tank. It's going to keep going. If you do it properly, it's going to keep going for a long time. If you keep doing the maintenance, all those things that the manufacturer said to do, that crane is going like the Energizer Bunny, man. That thing just goes and goes and goes. You're going to get a long life out of that piece of equipment. It's going to keep hammered down a whole lot longer than you climbers are. I'll tell you that. I've got cranes in my fleet that have way more hours on them than you do, probably, and harder hours. I don't care how big you are, how fit you are. If you've sat in on Phil Kelly's talk about biomechanics and repetition, that's the difference between the human body and the mechanical machine. The mechanical machine was actually designed for the repetition work. The human body, not so much. It likes to, like he said, stretch it out, get the yoga going, keep things loose. The crane, it doesn't care. It's just shampoo, rinse, repeat, right? Keep going, one after the other, all day long, fast as you can, slow as you want, whatever. It's gonna keep producing for you. But again, it's a tool. Use it the way it's supposed to be used. So to get the crane, we've got the crane in now. We did our JSA. We did our proper cribbing. We set up the boom. We're out there. We're ready to swing. The climber got his approved tie-in point. He's riding into the tree. Series of steps that are, like I said, subconscious. We don't think about what we're doing, but you got to pick the appropriate rigging to now attach the crane to the pieces of the tree. Another key point of failure could be in rigging. You have options, a lot of options nowadays. Options that keep getting better, it seems like. Back when, I've been doing this for 20 years, and I think the first crane job, tree removal crane job I showed up to, I was just like, I got some steel chokers here. I don't know. If I give them to you, will you put them on that, and then I'll put it on the ground later if you cut it off and whatnot? Didn't go so well. Our options now have come a long way. The rope slings that are available, fabulous. Samson and Westberg put a lot of effort, a lot of testing went into this stuff. This is, products that have been tested and tested over and over against, the cyclist. It's just a piece of rope, right? It's really good rope, but it's just a piece of rope. But you can't take just a piece of rope and put it on my crane hook and expect me to let you rig it to a tree. Any rigging that hangs off of a crane has to have a 5-to-1 safety factor. Before a lot of the rope slings were being manufactured and sold and marketed and whatnot, I hung in the really cool circle of cool kids, because we were on top of our game and everybody knows what they're doing. And somebody knew how to splice and whatnot, so he grabbed a piece of 10X one night while he was drinking, I think. All good, best ideas come while you're drinking, right? So he spliced a big eye on the end of his piece of 10X, put it on the hook then the next day, good to go. We did that a couple of years ago, and but that was, we'll call that product development. We were just testing stuff out, figuring it out. But realistically, I should never have let that piece of rope go onto my crane hook because it did not have a tag that said what it was made out of, that it has a 5-to-1 safety factor rated at this capacity, 4334 for the 5/8 quantum X slings. When configured in a vertical choke with a cow hitch termination on the lip, it has to say how it is to be used. Again, it is just another tool. It's a tool in the toolbox, and it's a great tool to have, but it has to have a explanation of how it's to be used. You can't just, I know guys, tree climbers love their ropes. I guess you guys, hang behind them, so it's a live or die kind of thing. You trust your ropes, I don't know what your rope's made out of. You tell me it's rated for 50,000 pounds. That 50,000 pounds, you're telling me a braking strength though. In the crane world, we don't run things to braking strength. We run them to manufacturer's recommendations. Everything has safety factors built in. Like I said, there's a 5-to-1 for overhead rigging. Anything that goes on the crane hook is going to have that 5-to-1 safety factor. Actually, chains have a different safety factor. I'm not sure if I remember exactly. I think it's a 6-to-1. It's different, but either way, there's a safety factor built in. You guys need to decide. This is, like I said, this progression of series of decisions that you've made that you need to stand behind. You all need to stand behind the decisions that you made to put these, this into place. We're taking down a tree. I've decided to set up the crane and where it is. I've cribbed it up. I leveled it up. I got it up. Now I got to rig it up. You got to decide right. The rope slings are awesome for balancing out picks. That crane, because we read the manual, we know it was designed to pick static loads. What's a static load? Doesn't move. If it did move, it would create acceleration. Acceleration plays into the mass of the beast times acceleration. That creates a force. Cranes were designed for static. We don't want to create forces. If you drop a piece into it, it's becoming heavier than what it actually is for a moment, but you don't want that. You want to pick it static. In order to pick it static, you got to pick some, there's no tree that I've come across yet, unless somebody like went Tate ran up into the tree and drew the lines on it, strap here, cut here. Anybody seen that in a tree yet? That's kind of the cool part about trees to me, is the fact that there is no exact piece you have to take. You have to take the piece that you're able to take, but it doesn't have to be a specific anything. We're going to work to the size of our landing zone. We're going to work to the climber's ability to get out there on those pieces, and that's a big part. Once you've made all those other decisions, like I said, again, you've done the JSA, you got the crane in, you set up, you got your work zone planned out, you've picked your rigging, you're going to use the rope slings. Don't get lazy on me now. Please don't get lazy on me now. You have to do your job now. It's your time to shine so that I can do my job after you've done your job. It's a team sport. We're working together. You've got to get out there and do all that fancy rigging, balance those pieces, create those static loads. They're the limb picks, the brush picks. This is where your big brains, really help us out to look like heroes. It's just a visual thing. You got to see those balance points, but be willing to do what it takes to do it. The one strap wonder days are gone. It's just not the way we do things anymore. The culture that we have developed to keep ourselves safe. It's all this that we're doing is really just a self-preservation thing. I want to go home to see my wife and kids tonight. I have to take down this tree in a cemetery to get myself the money to go home and feed my kids. So let's all work together. That's all we want to do, is create that mindset that don't take the shortcuts, put in the effort that it takes to get those picks perfect. You guys are all here today. You guys are putting in the effort. I appreciate that. The fact that you're willing to sit here for an hour and listen to me jabber on about all the kinds of nonsense that I've got to spew, I appreciate that, because you're showing that there's a culture of like-minded people that are willing to put the time in to say, hold on, what are we doing here? How are we going to get that piece from there to there so that the chipper can just gobble it up, make it into mulch later on, whatever, firewood? That is a thing where you cannot ever slack off. You got to be on game, on point. Don't get lazy, don't get redundant. The fact that you are willing to put the time in, there's tools out there. Use the technology that's available to start accomplishing those tasks easier. Every crane removal is actually supposed to have a green log weight chart on site while you're doing the removal. If you've rented one of my cranes, somebody took the time to go to Kinko's, FedEx, and get in the back of that TCIA best practices manual, they give you the green log weight chart. So you go copy it, you laminate it, stick it behind the seat in the crane, so it is always on. If my crane's on site, you've got a green log weight chart with you. If I'm not there, your crane needs to have a green log weight chart with it. But there's an app for that. There's an app for everything. You can just pull it up at any given moment, but don't wait to pull it up when the inspector's there. Wait to put your name on the citation, because everything went to hell in a bucket kind of thing, and we're trying to figure out that decision-making process that got you to the point where your boom is folded over the landscape and looking not the way it looked this morning. That's not the time to start trying to back up your decisions. Do that ahead of time. It's one of those points I'm trying to ingrain into everyone. Be ready to defend yourself. Be ready to tell people why you decided to do it the way you decided to do it. There's 9 ways to skin a cat. I don't care how you do it, as long as at the end of the day I got a dead cat. That's it. Not that I don't like cats, guys. I'm a dog guy, but yeah, they're good. Either way, the Rig Right Vector Force Calculator, that's not necessarily an app that you're going to use on the job, but times like this, isn't it nice to go back after the fact? Again, take the time to look back and figure out, well, how did that go good or how did that go bad? How are we going to learn from what we've done well and what we've done poorly? You got to take the time, invest that time, and go back and check what happened. Instant football has got instant replay. How many of you guys got instant replay on the job site?
No, I do.
Nobody. Yeah. You got instant replay?
It's not everything.
Okay, you get a one chance. It's either going to go right or it's going to go wrong. You rig it, you cut it. Mark showed us how to do these fancy cuts, that V-notch thing, whatever the heck it is, wow, that's awesome, fancy. I don't care how you cut it, just cut it, all the way. That's, when you asked me how I want a piece cut, you spent the time to rig it up in that fancy way, it looks good, we've both confirmed that that's awesome, let's do it, just cut it. I'm not saying just cut it, send it, the whole thing, but cut it all the way. At the end of the day, you're handing that piece of tree to me. I have to take it away. Who likes to just be thrown something? That's not the way. That's not even polite, We're civilized people, I want you got this? You sure you got this? It's yours. Take it away. That's how I want my crane removals to go. And again, more of the tools that we're using nowadays, game changers. absolute game changers. The rope slings are awesome. They definitely stepped it up. All these little things, the fact that we can get together and talk about something. What is that? It's communication. How can the simplest way to make anything safer is to talk about it? Keep the open lines of communication. You know, personally at the Crane Man Inc., we actually do supply, we have the center headsets. There's a whole bunch of brands out there. Use whichever one works best for you. I am not, sponsored by anybody, but, the centers work good. Whatever price point works good for you. There's EarTech, Inatech, Peltor, Senna. There's even some, this stuff was motorcycle technology, and somebody just decided that, hey, we wear helmets too, which is weird, because a lot of the motorcycles that where I live don't wear helmets. I don't know where they put their Sennas. It's weird. But it's a crossover of industry, but all it is communication. The ability for me to converse with you, what I'm doing, when I'm doing it, and for you to tell me. That's actually part of the standards for doing crane removals. You have to, as the climber in the tree, convey to me, as the crane operator, how much you think that piece is going to weigh. Before we pick it, before we've committed, we are supposed to communicate with each other. I'm supposed to tell you, I'm good for 5,000 pounds. Okay, Pete, I'm going to give this piece only looks like it's like 1,500 pounds. We got this all day. No problem. What better way to do it than to just talk to each other? Again, civilized community. We are polite people. We like to be respected. Who likes to be yelled at? Honestly, you like to be yelled at, I can tell.
Sometimes.
Yeah. And typically what happens when you get yelled at? You yell back. What happens when everybody's yelling at each other?
Lose focus.
That increases stress. It's just a bad place to start getting into. And I understand job sites, especially tree job sites, tree removals, there's a lot of things happening all at once. You've got, first off, if I'm there, you've got a crane there. There's a 500 horse, big old ISX 15-liter Cummins motor sitting there just idling away all day. It's not exactly quiet. I mean, it's not loud, but it's we've reached a certain decibel with that. At the same time, Bandit's got that 19XP sitting there with that screamer of a gas motor going. Thing eats some wood, but that's loud. There's a lot of noise happening. Now we've got two motors already going. What if you're running the bucket truck too? There's another motor running. Obviously we're doing tree work, so there's chainsaws running. I don't know why the guys always just leave them laying all over the ground in my drop zone running. I see them sitting there shaking. Luckily they were moving a little bit so I saw it, but there's noise. In addition to that, because we are carrying professional people, we have all our PPE on. We've got our chaps, we've got our hard hats, our safety glasses, and our rear protection. So now, we're yelling at each other because, what? I can't hear you. Oh wait, yeah, okay, yeah, gotcha. All these things that they're actually safety things that you should be doing, but you've made it more difficult to communicate with each other. So, that was like my little plug for the communication side of the house, I think. But definitely, crane job or not, I think the key to communication is being able to communicate. I can strongly recommend invest a couple bucks. It's going to last a while. Take care of them. Again, they're a tool meant to be used in a specific manner. They probably have an owner's manual too, so you could read that when you get home, and after you cracked at least one beer, flip that thing open. But use them how they're supposed to be used. They're going to benefit you. Time and time again. They're great. And they're going to add a level of safety. Communicating the safety. That's what we're doing here today. We're communicating with each other. You guys aren't communicating with me as much as I am with you, I feel. Everybody say hi, Pete.
Hi, Pete.
All right, you're awake. I appreciate that. Wasn't sure for a minute. So that's just one of those things. Communication is one of the utmost keys to safety. If we're not communicating with each other, it's not going to go good. It may seem like everything's going good. You're rolling right along, you did your JSA, you set the crane up, you got your proper cribbing, you decided your work zone, you've rigged it with your Quantum X slings that you purchased from Westburn, everything's good, but it's a dead ash tree. And little stuff, even though the V-notch cut were great, it floated right out of there. All of a sudden, boom! He had his helmets on though. He was able to communicate, somebody on the ground, because you guys watch each other's backs, right? We're a team. No solo players out here. Stuff happens. I like having somebody having my six. You know, I don't go into anywhere that I don't know how I'm getting out of. So just having the ability to communicate, somebody can give you the heads up. But in addition to that, even if you don't have the ability to communicate, have a situational awareness of what we're doing. I know I'm not a statistics guy. I know Dr. John Ball, he's a statistics guy. He had some numbers for us this year, right? It's staggering those numbers. And in my opinion, a lot of those numbers should have been avoided. When I do my crane safety climber school in April, it's a 3-day course. We tell everybody, while we're here, somebody's gonna die. Every 2.5 days, it's just statistically proven in the industry, somebody's gonna die. I don't want it better not ever happen there, and I hope you guys wouldn't, and why would it? Because that's a safety training thing. We're the guys that should be on our game, right? We're putting in the effort. It's probably gonna be the guy that's not here today. The guy that isn't putting in the time to come to an event, to listen to Pete talk about all this safety stuff, that's the guy that's going to get it. So what do you guys got to do? You got to go talk to that guy before, he gets out there in 2.5 days and knocks himself out of the game. This isn't, oh God, I always get this myself to a spot where I almost curse. This isn't secret squirrel stuff. Share it. Everybody go back to wherever you're from. Talk to your buddy that couldn't make it here today. Talk to the guys. Open lines of communication, sharing the knowledge, mentoring, leadership. Todd Kramer likes to talk about those leadership things. You guys can all be leaders simply by taking the information you learned here at TCIEXPO back home. Tell the guys that couldn't make it here. It's simple. Simple stuff. So, on to the glorious stuff. The crane removal stuff. Big pieces, little pieces, they all rig the same. The important thing is to practice it. We've learned all the skills. We've start to finish, figured out that we got to talk about it at the beginning, set up our do the JSA, document it, set the crane up properly, get into the tree properly and safely, then rig that piece. Rig it, don't cut corners. Rig it how it needs to be rigged. Then cut it how it needs to be cut, all the way. Can't say that enough. Cut it all the way, please. Crane isn't designed to snap it off. It's designed to just be handed the piece. Take it away. 7,000-pound piece of brush or a 500-pound piece of brush. It's going to be the same thing. Yes, it's not going to be as dramatic and potentially catastrophic if it doesn't go right. I mean, if 1,000 pounds, comes crumbling down, it's easier to dodge 7,000 pounds. There's a bit more bust coming at you there, right? But the important thing is, take pride in your work. Put the time and effort in to do everything the way we train to do it. Keep training to do it. Repetition, repetition. Unlike the body. And then when you do it good, celebrate it, man. You did a good job. Yippee. I did a good cut. Look at me. That was awesome. I want to do it again. That's our biggest thing at crane school. I want to do it again. I mean, it feels good, right? When you do what you've trained to do and it happens right, like the way we talked about it, the way we've communicated, That's a good feeling. Celebrate that, remember it, commit it to memory, whether it went good or bad, but keep repeating it. That way when it's needed, you can do it. If you made the cut, already, but you're scared for whatever reason, I don't care if you're scared just because the wind's blowing in your face and you want to just blow out your back, get out of the way. If you rigged it right, you cut it right, that's all. Then now it's my turn to shine. I get to be the hero. I get to pick the piece up, all super smooth, smooth operator. Remember the song? That plays in my head all day long. I can't get it out. I just did it again. But let me do my part now. I'm going to take that piece, the crane, because I read the manual, is going to stay within its capacities, take it away, not go over people's heads what aren't need to be overhead. You don't want to be under unnecessary loads. At some point, you guys got to get there because, I got to pick it up and put it down. And I'm not jumping out of the cab to unstrap it myself. And at some point, I might actually need you to help me, if we're working with that tight landing zone to help steer it in a little bit. I know some of you pinchy, grabby thingy guys have the ability to rotate the pieces in. I don't. It just hangs off the ball. The only thing I can do to make it spin, it's 100 feet away that I can't really actually make it spin. I'm one of the luckiest guys out there, I think, that I've actually developed little tricks and stuff. Again, repetition. Over the 20 years that I've done things, I've remembered what made them go good and what made them go bad. So yeah, that magic wand thing is only partly real. It's not really real. It's not a magic wand. It's a crane. It does only what the manufacturer says it will do. But my abilities to use it the way it was supposed to be used make some people think it's a magic wand. Got them fooled, just like I got the TCIA fooled that I'd be a good speaker here today. Suckers, paid for my hotel all week. But every now and then, you do have to have a guy in that area. It's a 2,000-pound piece of wood, but with one hand and watching what's going on, he can steer it down into position. He can help guide me into position to get that piece right where it needs to be. That's what we were doing, right? We're taking the tree from the tree to the ground. And again, you have a successful one. You think it went absolutely great. Talk about it. Review it. Document it. Help your guys later to repeat these processes. That's what we do at crane school. It's one of those times that you can just get in there and keep repeating the same thing over and over again. That way, when you have 128 feet of boom out, and the jib swung, and it's critical that piece come off perfectly, you can do that. Gain that confidence by repeating that, shampoo, rinse, repeat. Shampoo, rinse, repeat. You got this. Like I said, you have to practice it before you need it. I can't stress that enough. I mean, how many of you guys just, without even ever trying to tie whatever thing you tie to get into a tree, don't try it before you're in the tree? That seems like a silly concept, right? Why would you do that? It's the same thing with crane work. All our work, practice it before you need it. You don't want to be having that critical, has to be perfect pick with the nursery school full of kids sitting under the glass atrium, under your dead oak tree, and that be the time I'm going to try it. Hope it goes good. All those little faces. That's not when to do it. But if you've done it before, granted, you shouldn't do that with the kids. You tell the kids to move out of the glass atrium and whatnot. That's just for example's sake. But stressing the fact that if you practiced it enough before when it wasn't necessary, when it's necessary, you'll have the confidence to say, no problem, I got this, we can handle that. I got it. We're gonna do what's right. So that's pretty much all I have. I just appreciate everybody being here. Hopefully I'll see you all around somewhere, sometime. I'll be here for a couple more hours. It's been a long week. Thank you for coming.